Okay, upon review, I noticed that in the movies previous, as I move things around, it appears that the movie is catching the interface flashing, which is really annoying. So I will try keeping that to a minimum. Anyways, now that we have a functional theme, even though it's not that good looking, now comes the tedious part. The tedious part is where we create the website per media screen. In other words, we have to basically create 4 websites, one for each width of the device that the viewers will be looking at. So let's start by creating the header and the background and the footer. So let's say this is what we want our site to look like. Let's go ahead and start cutting the interface into pieces. I'm going to Command C, Command N, return, Command V, and save this. Notice that although our header is going to be 160 pixels, because it's a background tile in the header, you can make it a little bit more than that to make sure that you don't get unwanted tiling. So I'm going to save this file, save for the web. Make sure it's a JPEG. I'm going to go to my images and save it as header. And I'll replace it because it's replacing that blue moose loose. Okay, once that's saved, I can close it. Don't save. Then I'm going to go do my BG. Just grab it all the way across, avoiding the top part and the bottom part, right in the center. Command C, Command N, Command V. That's my background. Save for the web. Save. We'll call it BG, which isn't there, so you can call this whatever you want. Just remember what you call it. Okay, now that it's saved, I can close this. Don't save. And then I'm going to grab the footer, making sure that I'm doing 80 pixels high. Do the same thing, Command C, Command N, V, File, save for the web, save, and call it footer. Okay, so now I have my 3 graphics that I need. I am going to FTP them from my images on the computer to, here's my BG. Here's my footer. And here's my header. Now I'm going to explain something that might be a little bit difficult to understand. In order for this to be convenient in Dreamweaver, I have to put these styles right up here in the DWT so that when you open up this DWT, WP CSS, Style CSS, and Media CSS opens up because they are referred to in the code. This will not work when you put it on the server and it becomes a WordPress thing. Just so you know what's going on, if you were to go to the header graphic here, the header PHP, you will see that the style sheets are referred to in the header file. And it's really hard to see, but let's say this style right here. Okay, we see our styles Z, but it has this code. This code right here makes WordPress point to not only the CSS directory, but the CSS directory in your particular template. And so wherever you put this header, it will find the theme directory, which is currently Moose Loose Deluxe, and it will find the CSS. So if you didn't get that, it doesn't matter. You don't have to get it for it to work. So what I'm going to do is I have to remove this because this is not pointing to the theme directory. This is just pointing to the root directory of the WordPress install, which won't work. Now, after we remove this, these related files will not be loaded automatically. So that might be a little bit confusing, but let's go ahead and we're going to do it anyway because we don't mind the confusing. So now, if I was to save this, okay, we're going to save this. Let's see if it's going to crash on us. All right, this is great. Oh man. Wonderful. I'll see if I can edit this part out. Alright, let's reopen the template and see what damage was done. Alright, so now we're going to remove, we're going to attempt to remove this again. Okay, because those CSS, once again, they're being referred to in the header include over here. Okay, so the header include will have references to the correct style. Okay, let me see. I'm going to try to save this. Okay, now notice that now that we remove that code, our CSS, they don't show up in the tabs anymore. And that's why I put it in there in the first place, only so that those would open up as related to the DWT. Okay, so let's go ahead and save all. And move up our index. We go to our site. You should see our new header. Sometimes you have to view, not view page source. You have to view background image and then go back and refresh. So there's our header and there's our footer. Okay, so the reason that shows up is because we took those references out of the top of the DWT and just allowed the header PHP to find that. Okay, so now we have these columns. Let's get rid of these columns. But look, we do not have our style CSS, so we now have to open that up individually. So I'm going to open up my style C right here. And I'm going to find where that grid is. See where it says design helper delete. Instead, I am going to put images /bg.jpg, and I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to delete that. Okay, so now our container 12 is going to have BG. I'm going to save style CZZ, and I'm going to move it up. CSS. And then we'll look and make sure. Okay, so there we have it. might have to do on this one is do a dot dot. Let's see if that works. Yes, here we go. Okay, so you have to put that dot dot slash because the reason why is because your CSS is in a directory, and so it had to go down a parent and then back up, and that's what that dot dot slash. You'll see that it's typical on all the references to images. Okay, so now we have our site looking kind of like the way we want it to look. Okay, now I believe that we had a black background on the nav. Okay, and so basically now we have to go through and style this per media screen. But let's go ahead and put a black background on the nav. So let's go to our styles, look for our reference to navigation. There it is. Let's put a background color. And we'll make it black. And save the styles. These styles CSS. Move it over. Take a look at our site. There it is. So now we have our black. So it's beginning to look like the design that we have in Photoshop. Okay, so there basically is our functional theme beginning to look exactly like we want it. Look, when we get to a smaller media screen, the header will shrink accordingly. Everything is kind of working. Okay, so here we go. So that's all in place. Let's do the next recording. We'll be going through each media screen and fixing it so that it's responsive.